Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we are going to discuss the brand new 2023 miniseries from Netflix, Queen Charlotte: A Bridgerton Story. So this is 6 episodes long. It's a sequel prequel. So it's right after the events of season 2. Anthony's on his honeymoon. Violet's Bridgerton is gallivanting with Lady Danbury, and they have their tea with Queen Charlotte, and they're all reminiscing on the past, right, and stuff. And we're getting some. How long have these people known each other? How long has the friendship slash, acquaintanceship slash convenience of tit for tat from each other, working with each other? How long has that been going on? Well, it's been going on since they were for, late teens, early 20s. Long time. And it's neat seeing those three characters, those three, strong characters in their origins, quote unquote. So we get Lady Danbury becoming Lady Danbury, married to her husband. We get Violet, as a younger girl whose father had some intertwinings with Lady Danbury, and that was just woo, bro. The eyebrow raising constantly, the looks. It was just marvelous. But this story is Queen Charlotte. So Queen Charlotte, how did she go from being this princess in Germany, to marrying the Queen of England, to marrying the King of England, George III. So this is very loosely based on the historical facts and figures of that time period. So George III reigned from mid 1700s to early 1800s, something like that. I think I just looked it up. He died in 1820. Queen Charlotte died in 1818, something like that. They had 15 children together. They only had one legitimate royal grandchild, who turned out to be Queen Victoria, and then so on and so forth, and what have you for that line. So it's neat seeing this in a fictitious state. It's neat seeing, and I remember when Bridgerton first came out. This is based on a book series, but changing the ethnicity of a historical figure is interesting because you see ethnicity changes in characters on Broadway all the time, constantly, depending on what actor or actress is available. Sometimes it works, as long as the story has nothing to do with the ethnicity, the race of that individual. If the plot of the story has nothing to do with their race, ethnicity, then it doesn't matter what race or ethnicity the actor or actress is who plays. When I saw Frozen on Broadway, we had I think we had a black actress play Elsa, and it worked great. She's a fantastic singer. She was an amazing actress. The ethnicity of Elsa had nothing to do with the story of the show. My only problem, though, is that they had like an Indian girl play her as a child, like kid Elsa, and then you had this very strong, talented black actress play adult Elsa, and I was like, no, but you're changing the ethnicity of the girl playing to the adult. I was like, that doesn't make sense. That was my only concern. It's like, why are you having two different ethnicities play the same character in the same show? It was strange. It took me back. But anyway, the point being is that when you have an ethnicity change on the character, or in this case, a historical figure, if the ethnicity of that individual has nothing to do with the plot point, then there should never be a problem. That's the whole point of a lot of uproar within different franchises of how dare they change the skin color of the character? How dare they? Bro, you don't watch Broadway, obviously. You have no idea how theater works. That's just common. That's common. If the ethnicity of the character has nothing to do with the plot of the show, the plot of the story, then there's no problem. So stop making it a problem when there's no problem. Continuing on, having Charlotte be of a light brown-skinned individual within the Bridgerton story, within the Bridgerton show in general, started the, white cisheads screaming, how dare they change, our beloved Queen Charlotte's ethnicity. But it's like, bro, this is now a character. This is not an actual depiction of Queen Charlotte from the 1700s. This is a fictitious interpretation inspired by. This is very loosely based by. Calm yourself. Within this, we get that prequel aspect. We get that. How does it work? How did Charlotte wind up with George? Well, her brother sold her off. That's how that worked back then. You had a royal from one country, you sold them off to the next country. That way an alliance and trade route was formed. And it was explained just like that. So Charlotte was 7 and 10 years, as she explained, 17 years old, marrying off to George, who nobody would tell her anything about him. Didn't know what he looked like. Didn't know if he was smart, if he was dumb, if he was cruel, if he was kind. She had nothing, no idea. So her then trying to escape her marriage prior to meeting him and climbing a wall, and him introducing himself as Just George. It always comes back to the Just George. Bro, I cried so many times during these 6 episodes. I did not expect to. It was one of those why are my eyes leaking moments. It was insane. It was insane. So we get the origins of them, how they came together, the year leading up to the firstborn's birth, George the Fourth, her then being pregnant with their second child. But while this is happening, we're spliced in with the sequel aspect. So in between seasons 2 and 3 of Bridgerton, with the adults trying to figure stuff up, with Queen Charlotte trying to figure out what the hell she's going to do with her and George's reign, because she got 14, 15 kids out, but none of them will produce legitimate heirs. She has 50 illegitimate grandchildren from non-royal, with the whore sons that are sleeping around the town. But she needs a royal heir in order to continue the bloodline. So then that was the whole quest of the sequel aspect, alongside Violet dealing with grief, Violet dealing with the garden blooming again. Bro, did not expect that. So awesome. Lady Danbury talking about how her garden did not bloom until after her husband died. Bro, the conversations in this were mind-boggling in a gorgeous, no holds bar. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I gasped so many times. I was like I couldn't believe it. It was wonderful. So while the future sequel aspect is happening, we're getting the past aspect happening. So that was interesting, watching George inadvertently revealing his true manic self. George III was known to have mania, but it was also a means of, did he have pyrophoria, which is some liver disease thing, which causes some kind of mental illness. But then there's no foundry to that. But then there was arsenic found within his hair all those years later. So how the hell did he get all that arsenic pumping through him, which is clearly poison? So did the poison make him go mad? Was he just born that way? Was it an undosed case of bipolar and schizophrenia disorder, personality disorder? He had some form of mental illness, he was tortured in various very cruel methods. But they didn't have the knowledge that they do now 300 years ago. It's weird saying 300 years ago, but it was about 300 years ago when this happened. So seeing that character fight with himself, I think they humanized this George character more than the actual king, if I'm reading my history correctly. But seeing Charlotte finally understand why George was hiding away, or why he was hidden from her, or what does she do to calm him down? Well, she can calm him down, but how else can she help calm him down? To have the two footmen, Ramsay and Reynolds and Bingsley, to have their romance along with the king and queen's romance. The footmen of the king and queen have their own romance going on. Gorgeous throughout the entire thing. Bingsley dancing by himself at the end because Reynolds is not there with him. It was so sad. I was so upset. Little monologue he gave of I chose not to marry because I served the queen. Oh, bro, I felt so bad. But the two of them working together for the crown, the two of them working together for themselves, gorgeous subplot throughout the entire thing. I loved it. I loved it. Just so many things of Charlotte dealing with the life she now has, with Lady Danbury dealing with the life she now has, with Violet trying to figure out why white people are so mean against non-white people. There was a lot of integration questions. There was a lot of race questions. There was a lot of what happens next that this quote-unquote great experiment is happening, that the Queen of England is now not white, and they produce children who are partially white. How does this work within baton? How does Parliament accept this? How does everybody accept this great change now that non-white folk have titles of lords and ladies and are given land and are given money and are given duties and stuff like that? How does this great experiment work? And it's very interesting having this integration kind of conversation from 300 years ago standpoint, again in a fictitious aspect, because that it didn't happen. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But I, as a millennial, are quite versed in Remember the Titans within integration of schools playing football. Very well versed in Hairspray, the musical, and the show. Integration. I'm all for integration. It's the next frontier, right? Tracy Turnblad is all for that. So I'm in a generation who's seen that within film in various aspects and grew up with that because of different, protests and riots and things of people screaming for equal rights back then, which brought us to now, which we still have a lot of work to do. That was the whole purpose of the Black Lives Matter movement back in 2020 and continuing on. And now trans rights are an issue as well. It's just trans rights are human rights, right? So every couple of years, there's a new uproar for equality. And it's a matter of, why is equality still being fought for? Why do people still have to fight to be seen when they exist? It's very strange. It makes no sense. Humans are disgusting. But this is the world we currently live in, and the only way to change it is to speak louder. And that was what was interesting about this, is that if you are a Queen of England, the show, if you're the Queen of England and you're not white, and you have subjects who are also not white, how do you fight for them for equality to make sure everybody is on the same field? And it was very interesting addressing that from a fictitious historical aspect for something that happened over 300 years ago. So I really love the historical part of this. I love the historical fiction part of this. I love the ethnicity change of this to bring the integration conversation that happened massively within the 50s and 60s within the United States, 1950s and 60s within the United States. Having that happen 200 years after the events of this thing, right? Because this show takes place right before the American Revolution, before the colonists start to actually dump the tea in taxation without representation and demand our freedom from this tyrannical empire, right? Which a lot of people now are demanding within our own country. So it's very interesting watching A, history repeat itself, B, history being told in a different light in general, and C, how do we learn from all of this, right? How do we learn from the actual historical events that happened, which inspired this show, which then triggered this franchise, which then can continue on for decades to come? It's unfortunate that Queen Charlotte is only a miniseries, because they have 15 kids. They could literally do 15 seasons worth of the events leading up to the birth of the next child, and so on and so forth, and what have you. There's so much potential within this, and the explanations of all these things that happened, 50, 60 years prior to, probably like 40, 50 years prior to the events of Bridgerton season 1. It's very interesting getting that backstory, because we didn't really ask for it. But bro, I am so happy we got it. Seeing that romance grow within these characters who are loosely based on historical figures, it was so poignant. And to have Charlotte saying, she's there for him, to have George having this crisis of identity. He can't give Charlotte a full life. He can only give Charlotte a half life, because when the mania kicks in, he can't control it. It's just so wonderful seeing these types of open conversations within the dynamic of this time period given to us in life lessons. So it's I didn't think I would be thinking so much after watching this. I was just so enamored with the acting of it, and bro, the snide comments, or the eye or the head tilts, or the first 5 minutes, I timed it. The first 5 minutes, there was no talking. It was just acting. It was so amazing. And anytime George or Charlotte would go under the bed to escape the heavens, to have their actual George and Charlotte conversation, the camera did that pan, which I love. And it panned to them on the floor and going under. And Cinematography was gorgeous. The set design was gorgeous. The music was gorgeous. The acting was gorgeous. The props, the costuming, it was so gorgeous and well done. I am so amazed in this, and this better win all the awards come the next current full award season, because this was incredible. I am so upset that it's just a mini series. I can't now wait till season 3 of Bridgerton. We've talked a long time about this, but bro, Queen Charlotte, a Bridgerton story, amazing. Absolutely amazing. I need everyone to watch this. I need everyone to watch it. I need everybody to learn from it. I need everyone to question how the future should look. Amazing. I'm going to quote Tracy Turnblad again. Integration, it's the next frontier. But I'm also going to quote Queen Charlotte in this. Sorrows, sorrows, prayers. Mucho mahalo.